again, welcome. This is Reverend Ōshin Jennings. He and I met a couple years ago at City Center, San Francisco Zen Center. And more recently, we've been interacting, getting to know each other and our common interests in making practice accessible to a larger population. He's a priest in the Izumi Roshi lineage. A therapist and an artist, and the guiding teacher of No Barriers Zen Temple in Washington, D.C. He's visiting, and I'm very pleased to have him here.
I'm happy to be here too. Thank you so much for your welcoming and for allowing me to speak with you tonight.
And I also want to introduce Sierra. And give a short notice. She had another meeting before. So thank you for both of you being here. All right. So you need the clock or anyone? So we also have a short memorial this evening at the end. So this portion will go until 8:50. And then
again, thank you for allowing me to come and share my stories with you today. I'm really inspired to be here. There's always some adjustments. Just want to make sure everyone can hear and see me clearly. Okay. So who am I? Who am I? Well, I was a Korean monk who actually contemplated what that meant, who am I? There was a Korean monk who did that. Imagine 30 years, every day, who am I? It's a pretty good question. Who am I? What space am I taking up? What am I doing here? What is my purpose here right now? And then you can let that go. Let's give Sierra the microphone.
We have another mic. And now I'll talk.
And then I'll talk. What's been interesting for me lately is to really get into my own, what my beliefs are about myself. Like who I am, what is the concept around that? Even establishing that belief can also be in its own challenge. I was working with a student, and they said that they wanted to know about the accommodations that are needed for people with various disabilities. And they said that I didn't need anything. But really, that was interesting because we don't think about it. Because the world isn't necessarily built for us, for all of us, right? For example, I have a blind student, and they'll talk about the various accommodations or different things that are needed for deaf students. And so that person doesn't need much. And the blind student will say something about changing the light bulbs. And you don't think about that because it doesn't apply to you, to those that are sighted, because you can see. And so you don't need the light bulb in the same way. So that accommodation, is that for you? That's interesting, right? The blind student doesn't need that accommodation. I'd like to share a short story. I remember when I was learning about the 4 foundations, and saving all sentient beings, and that's our English translation for, and how that has been translated over time and over different lineages. I think about saving all sentient beings, all of them? Me? Can I do that? That's impossible. It becomes an abstract concept. And then that's more easy to work with. For example, do I have a belief about my hand? No. A belief? A concept? No. It's just my hand. It's abstract. It's not, excuse me, it's not abstract, it's material, it's here. I use it. It's very intimate. There's no concept behind it. It's my hand. Something happens in our training, in our socialization, where things stop becoming what they are, stop becoming abstract and becoming more material, more connected. For example, as a deaf monk, what does that mean? What is his story going to look like? He's just a regular guy from New Jersey, figuring out his life day to day, little by little. And it's really not abstract. Well, it could be a little abstract, you know. There's solidity and abstract. You can sort of dance with it. That's the art in it as well, the art of abstract.
Sorry, can we turn the microphone towards Sierra?
Is that better?
Yes, Mitch, thank you.
Does it help if she
Oh,
clips it on?
Sierra, that microphone is for me, and you can hold it farther away. Thank you. Thank you.
But it's recording, right? It's good for the recording or not?
Yes, it's for the recording.
So my story about 2-3 years ago, I got on the New York subway. I was on my way home, and it was later on in the evening, and a lot of the lines, a lot of the different tracks were closing down to sort of all lead into one. Welcome to New York. It was a hot evening. There was a lot of people smushed into the train, everyone cramped in there. And there was a couple, one seated and one standing in front of the other. They were talking to each other. The woman was seated and the guy was standing facing her. And I saw that the woman had a worm inching up her arm. And the guy was like, "You have a worm on your arm." And the woman freaked out. She had her whole response, and she's like, "Get it off of me, get it off of me, no." And what did the guy do? He plucked it and threw it on the wall. So now it was inching up the wall. So that means the entire train at this point was watching this worm inch up the wall. Nobody was doing anything except watching it. Everybody was keyed in, and they were all checking it out. Like, what is going on over there? And the couple got off on their stop, and they left us with the worm. Somebody should do something about that. There was a girl about 12, 13. She got up, walked over to the wall, plucked the worm, and placed it in her hand. And who did she give it to? To me. You're some kind of monk or something, right? You should take it. Crap. Thank you. I received the worm. And I was standing in my robes, with my backpack. And it was inching over my hand, so I ended up creating its own pathway from hand to hand, continuing to hold it. And this was all as the train was still moving and jostling along. I was holding it and holding on to the railing. Holding onto it as it was crawling up my arm. And what happened was there was a woman behind me, and she held onto my backpack to support me. So I thanked her and had a smoother ride. 30 stops later, I was in the cheap seats way in the back. I got off the train, went all the way upstairs, finally to the street, and brought the worm to a tree. It had been a workout for me. Saving all sentient beings. It's not an abstract thing. It's right there. It's right there with all of us, with all of you. Someone said, "Oh, you're a monk or something," and she noticed that. "Oh, you're a nurse. Oh, you work at a print shop." You're a printer. That's your role. That's your responsibility. That's how you share that support and spread it. It's not abstract, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I have a belief about something, then I separate myself from that belief. It's not the direct experience like holding the worm from hand to hand. I don't want you to feel like you have to change something about yourself after tonight. It's all a practice. It's like when the stars align or when parts come together and it fits for when things can move towards making it a real practice. Instead of that, why not start now? Just get the worm. And then whatever is next, to do that. I had something interesting happen recently. It might be a little bit abstract, sorry, to share. But the function of ASL, the language that I use, I can sign a story, and people will say, oh, Sierra, for example, we were chatting. I can say something, and then I can say that Sierra says something by changing my shoulders, changing my body, role shifting. And then from that point, my story becomes a dialogue between me and Sierra. And I can show both of us in the story, okay? And so because I know her, it can be more intimate that way. And it's also my style of signing. And then I can take on her character, or her voice, so to speak. Are you following me with this idea?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a funny thing happened to me where I was having an argument with someone. We were talking, and then later, I was in my grumpily way arriving home, and my housemate and I were talking, and I was telling them about what had just happened, the story. And so I was like, I said this, and I signed that to them, and then she said this, and she signed this. But then, it became more of me taking on her character and her voice. And so my point about me being right, from sharing the story that included her perspective, I was bouncing back and forth between both perspectives so much that, oh shit, I was wrong. And how did I notice that? Because I encapsulated her. I brought her into my being. And where did that separation go? It dissolved. It's interesting because we do have our concepts. And then, with more intimacy, it dissolves. I have a strong story. I can just, I can just drop the story. Or drop the mic, I guess. That really struck me. I don't have to change something about who I am. I'm already good enough. But as a deaf monk, I do feel different. I do feel other. I do feel like I have to make changes and adjust to a situation. But I don't have to. Not really. It's taking me 20 years to figure this out, but I feel like I'm starting to get some headway and actually do it. When I enter a specific space and I notice that there's a reaction, it sparks my curiosity about how I can create a good way to sort of test the health of their practice. When I go into a community and there's a lot of hustle and bustle or a big response, some people get upset or what's going to happen. I won't let their responses affect me. But if I go into a space and I'm welcomed and it's able to congeal and the energy is much more mature, you could say, it's interesting to see how that affects the deaf body in a public space like that. It's interesting. For many years, I would use my voice. I would chant and try to follow along. Chant with one eye open to make sure that I was fitting in and getting it right. It was difficult. It was also a good practice. And something interesting happened to me when I decided to drop that story and to actually sign. I noticed that a couple of other people were copying my signing. And then more and more began to sign as well. And then it became a full community that's signing in their chants. Some people came up to me and would ask questions about specific signs or how to sign something. And I had been chanting for 20 or 30 years. And then now, this experience changed the entire space in the community. Some people were really blown away, and they could feel this signing and embodying of the Dharma, of the chanting, and feel it in them as a completely different experience. So I asked them to tell me more about that. What if the tools of your language were already within you? If your awakening was already within you? Right here. What if I stopped denying myself? When I stopped denying myself and started signing, I realized that it was within me. And then other people were responding to my own honesty. it became a different experience. And when I am more fully in tune with myself, then others were able to notice and respond accordingly. I mean, that was a humbling lesson for me. So Zen, what would you consider Zen practice to be about? Awakening your own life? That's it. The tools for liberation are already right here. Go ahead and pick up the worm. That's it. Okay? I did save some time for Q&A, is that right? Yes. So, someone does have to be first.
I'm curious if when you started chanting with sign, if you close your eyes.
No. I feel now more than before, my eyes are opening up, and I'm even widening my peripheral to include more information and include more of everyone. Zen still has a downward cast gaze, a 45-degree angle, but I feel that it's not about me either. It's about all of us within me. So chanting, by verbal chanting, by signing chanting, we're all within one voice. My voice can be high, some voices can be low, some voices can be signed. Does that make sense?
I was wondering, so I'm 34 and I'm arguing with some of my friends right now. And I feel like we're trying to mature, or we're trying to grow up in some way. And so I've been thinking a lot about maturity, and you just had a small comment. You said that sometimes when you entered a space and you felt like there was a more mature energy, that you felt more comfortable, versus a space where you entered it and it seemed like there was a lot of commotion or distraction. I just kind of wanted to ask sort of what a mature energy or a mature response felt like to you.
I will have voiced my response. So it's a very interesting experience. I've gone and visited temples all over the world. And that comment is, it's so interesting when you come into certain spaces and you notice how uncomfortable a deaf body, a disabled body, maybe it's a queer body, or a person of color body. You just notice, if you've had that experience, probably had an experience as a female identifying person, that in some spaces, as a deaf person, it can be an invisible disability. I can walk into a space as a white male and be pretty much have it made. And then what happens when I try and communicate? Or I don't exactly fit in. I have the haircut, I have the right colors on. It's very interesting. I went into a monastery one time and they're like, "Oh, Reverend, oh, please take the seat in the ryoban, in the first row." And they said, "Okay, I'll put my interpreter next to me." She's not good enough to be in the ryoban. You know, it's just really interesting when some centers get really stiff. And we've talked about this, what that feels like. And so my comment is this deaf body is really interesting, it's tough. And I'm increasingly more comfortable with that. I can come into a space, I'm deaf. I have other disabilities, I have other things going on, but the deaf thing is what we're going to talk about probably in the next 5 minutes, right? And we're watching how some communities are just like, okay, that's what's happening. Okay, how can we meet you? And there's a warmth and openness. And for me, I'm like, you know? And it usually comes from the top down. The teacher's like, meh, it was further along. Because I was kind of expanding on that comment. That makes sense?
I think so, like an openness and flexibility and warmness is, and then you feel more comfortable, and that's kind of what feels like a mature space to you.
Yeah, it's my own perverted view for the moment. It'll change. But this practice is about being intimate with ourselves, and when people practice intimately with themselves and intimate with each other in community, deaf monk, I can't figure it out. When people practice intimately with themselves and intimately with each other, you can feel it, right? You felt it. I feel it here. So, how can you show up in those spaces that are already intimate and accepting and warm? But how can you show up in spaces that aren't that? You have to really occupy your body, or really occupy your space. And they say, no, I need this. This is my dance square. This is what I'm doing. This is the body I have. This is the politic I have. This is whatever. It's fun. It's a good practice in intimacy. Sure. Hi.
Thank you. I was wondering, I think as I continue to spiritually wake up, that I'm
slow down. Okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I'm finding that I'm becoming more isolated from the people that I love. I grew up in an organized religion, and I really veered a different way. And I'm wondering what's the approach to kind of continue to call my family in rather than call them out and have arguments, and what would be a better approach? Because I want to keep waking up, but I feel like I keep getting caught between waking up and then a wedge between my ego and my spirit, and protecting myself from being attacked, and then me wanting to also attack back to protect my ego.
My first response would be, you too? My second response, suffering is so interesting, right? What happens if we become more interested in the story? Because that tends to create a gap. And what is that gap filled with? Suffering. With intimacy, there's no suffering. Or less, or a different kind, all of this. My third comment would be, oh wow, 3 comments, goodness. I think the kids are saying these days, blow up my spot. I tend to do that, right? That's what they say. So that means...
Yeah, good luck.
I'm going to catch up. So blow up my spot in a way could be turning away from that. And owning my vulnerability. So basically like saying, Mom, this is what's going on with me right now. I'm feeling this. Blowing up my spot. This is what's going on. And if you can show up honestly, this is me. Most people will be able to respect that honesty and meet you. You can give it a try, maybe? Be gentle with your process. Be gentle with yourself. How's our time?
Yeah, I think we take at least one more.
One more to go.
First, thank you. Do you have advice for, I guess, forgiving yourself for past mistakes?
Mhm.
That's something I'm working on right now. So I noticed, okay, I just met you, and whether you're shy or curious, I can approach you, nice to meet you, tell me about you. It also depends on my quality of attention and my engagement, right? I mean, this is a new person. We haven't had a history or developed a story yet. So this heart is open, this mind is open. And that also could be a funny trick with ASL. The sign for knowledge or to know is this. But the sign you don't know is that. Taking the hand away from the body. So it's interesting to know. It looks like it's more closed off. And when you don't know, it looks like you're more open. Your heart is open, your mind is open when you don't know, and engaging. But that quality of engagement with you after we just met is different than working with my friend or a lover. But also that not with myself? How gentle I am with you would I be with myself? I sort of push that aside on my own. Why is that? Do you feel that way?
Yes.
Yeah, same here. So I'm learning how to respect that and engage with that. How I would engage with others just as gently with myself by not knowing and opening in that not knowing. Maybe that would help, I hope.
I have time for one more. Unless you're tired.
No, well, it is.
Oh, it's my...
I never changed my watch. And so for me,
Yeah, I think we can do one
it's
more.
about 11:45 right now.
That's fine.
But it's fine. One more? I'll just go for it. Okay, then I have a quick prompt. I'll just make a comment then instead of a question. Thinking about how to work with one's body. I remember thinking about how we never practiced at the specific, how I never practiced at a specific temple, a monastery. It was too rigid, too much, and I didn't fit in. I was too disabled. And it was saddening that I couldn't fit in that monastery. And then I thought I felt like I wasn't really practicing. Do you know that feeling? Like waiting for my real life to begin? I was taking my medicine one morning. You know the AM, PM pill boxes that flip open, the plastic covers? That one medication I had to take with food. So that means I have to wake up at a specific time and sort of calibrate when I'm going to eat and when I'm going to take the medicine and time it out just right. And then I can go to work afterwards. And then come back, I have to meditate, and then lunch, sort of, and take my medicine, figuring out my day, my schedule for it. And then I thought, this is exactly what it's like at the monastery. I don't have any choices about when I can eat or when I can sleep. I have to follow the pillbox. The pillbox is like my bell. Oh, meditate, oh, eat, oh, pills, oh, medication, oh. And then it all became its own thing. This is my mountain right here. This is my monastery. And you are my sangha. And then tomorrow, when I go back, I'll meditate on the plane. I'll eat the cheap food on the plane. And then I'll take my medication and keep it going as it eases into its own. Okay, thank you so much.